The impact that war would have, or at least you create the impression, that war would be of a disastrous character.
I might actually use this moment to return to the safety of my basement studio. So, part of the theory of deterring nuclear war is that you make everyone so terrified of it that nobody would ever actually press the button. You create a ridiculously big nuclear arsenal and then tell everyone how terrible it would be if anyone ever used that nuclear arsenal, therefore making it very unlikely that it will ever actually be used. Fear is part of the system. The less we fear it, the more likely it is to happen, and vice versa. The very existence of the doomsday clock makes it less likely that it will ever reach midnight, at least in theory. Let's look at this theory on a smaller scale.
20 years ago, computer memory limits forced programmers to shorten the year stamp to 2 numbers. But come 2000, computers won't understand 00. They'll stop.
Do you remember this? The threat of the Millennium Bug?
Anything with a date timer is at risk. Airport controls, traffic lights, the power supply, payrolls, the office lift.
The experts were very convinced that at midnight on the 1st of January 2000, the world's computers would go haywire.
Type 00 into your computer, press enter. I dare you. What happens? It stops working.
And governments around the world took it very seriously.
It is a complex test that requires us all to work together.
Worldwide, Y2K bug preparations have cost several $100 billion.
And then when the clock struck midnight and the new millennium began,
there were no massive blackouts, no planes falling from the sky, no nuclear meltdowns.
Learned that we did have a cash register that refused to process receipts in Okinawa.
A lot of people thought the whole thing had been a scam.
I think a lot of people made a lot of money out of it all.
We had the emergence of what I term the Y2K entrepreneur, dedicated to building this thing up as much as they could, milking it to the maximum that they possibly could.
Computer analyst Graham Bond said that while the problem was real, it could have been dealt with much more cheaply if there had been less hype.
Instead of these things being treated in a sensible way by the people that operated and understood the equipment, those people got sidelined, bring in the external consultants, and vast amounts of money were expended.
But here's the question. Was fear of disaster a key reason that the disaster was averted? Without fear of nuclear apocalypse or climate disaster or AI going rogue and killing us all, would we be making those things more likely to happen? Strategic Studies Professor Geoffrey Lee Williams didn't think so. He said that he thought exaggerating the threat of nuclear war was a mistake.
And in the end, it becomes self-defeating, because it makes any kind of provision by way of protective measures for the population seem irrational, unnecessary, even dangerous.
So if nuclear Armageddon is inevitable, what's the point in taking actions to prevent it? Stephen Pinker has been thinking about this for a long time. Stephen, is overstating the risk of doom more likely to make us give up?
I think that really is a danger. If you pile on the doomsday scenarios, if nuclear war doesn't wipe us all out, then climate change will, and if that doesn't, then it'll be rogue artificial intelligence. At some point, people would just say, to hell with it, if we're doomed, I may as well enjoy life now. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Bill Gates, who I know is a big fan of yours, Stephen, recently made a lot of headlines with some comments on climate change. He said that while climate change will have serious consequences, particularly for people in the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Do you think that statements like this, even if they are accurate, undermine the efforts to decarbonise the economy?
It's at least as likely that people will be more receptive to decarbonisation. It's not a question of whether we're doomed, which is not to say that we can relax. We definitely can. Bad things will happen unless we decarbonise. But we've got to adjust the balance of decarbonisation so it doesn't keep poor people in extreme poverty.
Bill Gates' argument is effectively that preventing people in developing countries from improving their standard of living using fossil fuels would be more harmful to them than the expected effects of climate change. And he points out that we're already on our way to dramatically decreasing our emissions without dramatically changing our lifestyle.
Matt Bevan joins us now from Brisbane.
In my career, I've had some role in covering 18 elections and referendums, and as you can see, they've taken their toll. I don't make predictions, at least not publicly, but if you had forced me to make one a couple of months before each one of those votes, I would have got it right 10 out of 18 times. Basically, only marginally better than flipping a coin. And yet somehow I still cover elections professionally. Very weird. Among our letter writers, several made predictions about something that was within their own field of expertise. Professor Norval Morris, a world-famous criminologist, foresaw the end of the use of prisons as a punishment for crimes.
I see it. Prison as a punishment started in 1790. It's clearly on the decline now and seems likely, apart from a few vestigial remains, to disappear before 1990.
Dr. Brian Elliott, the great champion of Australian literature, predicted that the royal family would decide to leave London for greener pastures.
And would it be so surprising if the new royal residence should be situated in that delightful, beautiful and highly cultured metropolis, uncontaminated by any intrusion of sordid or commercial industrial pettiness, Canberra, the nation's, nay, the Commonwealth's capital?
Alex Ramsey, the architect of modern Adelaide, predicted that things would only get better in the future.
In my lifetime, and it's not been all that long as yet, the strides science and engineering have made make it seem quite certain that unless we blow ourselves up for political reasons, we shall, by the end of this century, have no more economic troubles.
Well, we do still have a few economic troubles, but on average, there's never really been a better time to be a human than right now. It's just that a lot of the time, it doesn't feel like it.
A lot of progress is that you refer to is invisible. It's simply, it either consists of things that haven't happened, that therefore don't make the news, like parts of the world that are at peace. When there's a war, it's news. When there's nothing happening, it's almost by definition not news.
And Stephen Pinker says that part of that is because we don't really report on it.
Also, some of the progress that's taken place creeps up a few percentage points a year, such as the decline in extreme poverty, the increase in longevity. There's a gravitas, a kind of seriousness that comes with pointing out the negative. You seem more like a prophet.
Of the 20 people the ABC asked to write a letter in 1959, just one was a woman. In her letter, Ellen Christensen talked about the two types of predictions about the future. One epitomised by people like George Orwell,
who describe your age in terms of mechanisation, standardisation, exploitation and annihilation. Well, if the Orwell point of view is correct, you won't be here to find the letter.
And the other by people who predict a labour-free utopia,
in which no work is done by man. It is the age of automation. Machines make machines and work them.
But Ellen Christensen said that she wasn't really interested in what the circumstances of our life were.
I'm not interested in the material man-made world in which you live. That's ephemeral and immaterial. I am interested in what sort of person, what sort of individual you are, in how you feel when you're alone with yourself. On the personal side, in any period of history, the experience of life is surely much the same.
Her idea was that being a human doesn't really change all that much.
I have friends amongst the Trojan women and the Canterbury Pilgrims, though they're much further away from me in time and external circumstances than you are.
The thing is, I am certain that Ellen Christensen is right. The reason for that is that we've asked a number of Australian luminaries to give us some letters to file away with the ones from 1959.
Hello, I'm Geraldine Doog, bringing you a letter for the future.
G'day, Dr. Karl here, with a letter to the future, to our dear descendants at the end of the 21st century.
My dear great-great-grandchildren, your welfare is constantly on my mind.
I think of you often, you whose face I'll never see, whose name I'll never know, whose voice I'll never hear.
I try to imagine life in 2090 for my much-loved young and carefree grandchildren.
And the extraordinary thing about them is how similar they are to the ones that we dug up from the past.
Australia will become, I predict, a leader in our region, of whom we can be proud.
Towards the end of this century, you'll say, Jacinta, darling, please stop feeding dark energy and dark matter into the black hole and come in and have lunch because, thanks to the discoveries of physics, we are like gods. And after lunch, let's teleport to London.
One massive change in the 2026 version of this project is who is participating in it. 67 years ago, all of the writers were white and only one was a woman. Today...
My future child, if you do exist, I hope that by your time our world has learned to choose better